So the sewing machine we're looking at right here is the Brother Innovis 40E, and this video is going to show you how to set up your sewing machine. So when you have your sewing machine, the first thing we need to do is plug in the foot control and then the power cord. So the foot control gets plugged into the side in a small little circular jack, and then the power cord will go into the spot right behind it. When plugging in your sewing machine, you want to make sure that your sewing machine is turned off when you plug it into the wall. Before we start sewing, there are a few features on the sewing machine that I would like to go over with you. The first being the hand wheel. So the hand wheel, what it does is it manually raises and lowers the needle, and you only ever want to rotate it towards you. You never want to rotate it away from you because that could actually do damage to the machine. Another feature I would like to show you is the speed control. So as this is a digital machine, we still kind of have a manual speed control, which is kind of nice. So you just go up to full speed. If you want to go to the fastest speed, I recommend all of us should be starting here. Based on our surveys, it's been a while since we've sewed, so it's nicer to start slower, just while we're getting used to the sewing machine again, and then as we get more comfortable, we can move it up to mid-speed and increasing it. I recommend never sewing at full speed. I find that's when we tend to make the most mistakes and accidents can happen. A few other buttons of importance that I would like to show you are these three. So the first one is an auto sew button, and what that button does is you can push it and your sewing machine is going to sew without the use of your foot pedal. The other button, which is very, very, very important, we're going to use this for every single project ever, is the back stitch button. And what you do is you hold this button and your sewing machine is going to stitch backwards. And the reason why we back stitch is we back stitch at the beginning and end of every seam, so a seam is one sewn line. And what it does is it ties a knot at the beginning and at the end, so our project doesn't fall apart. And then the next button that I wanted to show you was just the needle up or the needle down button. So if you ever need to reposition your needle, you can just push that and the needle will go down. You can push it, it'll go back up. A few other features of our sewing machines I wanted to point out to you was the presser foot. So the presser foot is used when we're sewing. What it does is it holds our material down so it doesn't slide all over the place. There is a presser foot lever. It's a little gray switch back here, and you can pull it up and the presser foot will go up, pull it down, presser foot goes down. If your sewing machine is not sewing, check your presser foot. These machines will not sew if it's in the upright position, so you always need to make sure it's down so that you can sew. Another thing I would like to point out is you see this little red wire. This was sent home on all the machines that were lended by our school division. Please do not take this little red wire off. What it is it's called a finger guard, and it protects your finger from getting in the way of the needle. It does make it a little trickier sometimes when threading. However, I find that if you have your needle in an up position, you should be able to get it through. Another component of the sewing machine I wanted to show you was all the different stitches we have. You want to be careful because some of these stitches require a different presser foot. And so if you are going to play around with any of the stitches, please check the manual to make sure you have the right presser foot on the sewing machine. But for most of our projects, we're going to be using number 1, number 2, or the zigzag stitch. And there's a few different zigzag stitches to pick from, so it'll depend on what we're doing. But generally, we're going to be sticking to 1 or 2. And then we do have the option to change the length or the width of our stitches. So you can look up here and you can push the plus or minus on the top one, and that would increase the length of your stitch. You can make it longer or shorter. And then you have one that increases the width. So if you're doing a zigzag stitch, it might make it a wider zigzag or a narrower zigzag. So those two buttons will adjust the stitch length and width. And if you ever just want to go back to default, what I do is I just turn off my sewing machine, I turn it back on, and it's back to my default setting. The last thing I wanted to talk about as we're reviewing the sewing machine is tension. So there's a piece of paper I sent home in your sewing kit related to tension, and that could be a little practice sheet for you to use just to review why your stitches might not be going so well. If they're super loopy or they're really tight and everything's scrunched up. So if you look here, the tension dial is currently set to 4, and that's generally the standard of what you would like it set at. And all the machine's tensions were checked. So I would just recommend leaving that dial alone, leaving it set to 4, and then you should be good to sew.